Now, Jolene Kent is with us. She's at West Point, actually. She has the man who runs America's Cyber Command with her, a 4-star general. All right, Joe, it's yours.
Stuart, thank you so much. We have exclusive coverage of the West Point Cybersecurity Summit, and joining me now is the former head of the NSA and former head of Cyber Command, Keith Alexander. General Keith Alexander, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Joe.
In the past, you have said that some degree of surveillance is important to be in place, and yet there has been this new demand in the aftermath of Apple and the FBI for more privacy and more security. Where do you stand on the issue right now?
Well, I think what's our nation need? And, you know, I look at what Apple's going through, really good people. They see the security of the private information as key. And I see over here Jim Comey and the FBI trying to defend the country. How do you get the information you need to be secure? Where I am is we need both. You know, we need to act as a team. I think something happened to the team, we've got to rebuild it. And that's where our government, our industry needs to come together and act as a team for the good of the nation. Because it's not either or, it's both. We need security and we need our civil liberties and privacy. That's going to be hard. It's harder to do both than one or the other. But you know, the American people need both. Because if we just do security, then we don't have civil liberties and privacy. And if we just do civil liberties and privacy, then our security is at risk.
And one of the solutions here at the Cybersecurity Summit is really about collaborating between the private sector, companies like Facebook and Intel, working with the Army, the Navy, Cyber Command. And yet, we just heard inside from a top military official, General Ray Odierno, that he believes that there may be an attempt in the next 5 years of what could be an absolutely devastating cyber attack on the United States. Do you agree with that? What do you see as the next big threat?
Yeah, so I agree with him. I think what General Odierno put out is correct. And the question is how long, when is that going to hit? And he pointed out correctly that if we are to blunt that attack, save our country, it requires government and industry to work together. And we can do this. And I think that's a great part of what you see in conferences like this. Bring in government, bring in industry, and let's talk about the ways of moving forward in the future.
Well, you now sit on President Obama's Cybersecurity Advisory Panel. You just had your first meeting. How effective do you think the president has been in thwarting cyber attacks? Because we have seen more attempts. The Chinese are not stopping their attempts at hacking into Americans' accounts and stealing intellectual property.
Well, I don't think it's just the president. It's how is the government and industry, what does the government and industry need to do to solve this problem? I think what the president has done and what others are doing is let's sit down and work together for a solution. And the idea of putting together a commission is to help bridge that gap, just like what you're seeing here, and come up with the ideas that can help drive our nation forward in this area. So I think it's the right thing to do, and it's a tough area. And you just by your questions, you've brought out some of the key things. There's distrust between government and industry for a whole series of reasons.
A deep distrust. Right. Do you think that's reconcilable at this point?
Well, it has to be. You know, it's like I gave you the analogy of a football team, on offense and defense. It's out there scrimmaging. If they start to fight, the team is going to lose. And we're fighting, and we should be operating as a team. So how do we build that back? And I think it's by being more transparent and helping industry see what the government roles and responsibilities are, and government to see what industry is doing. So there are some great opportunities.
Well, what about talent? Because we have shrinking budgets, tighter budgets, and a lot of talented cyber-ready professionals and students moving to Facebook and Google and Apple and places like that. How does the government attract the talent in a time where everyone seems to want to go to the private sector for not just the perks, but the innovation and the job experience?
Well, so you get innovation in government too. And, you know, the nice part about the government is you can do things in the government to defend the country. You know, my experience working at NSA, these are great people, both in the cyber and countering terrorism. And what keeps them in is not the salary. It's the knowledge that what they've done has stopped a terrorist attack or helped recover a hostage or protected our nation in cyber. And those are things that you can't get elsewhere. And so I think the synergy between both is what our nation needs. So grow them up and then allow them to go out to industry. And that's what will be good for our country.
Well, General Keith Alexander, thank you so much for joining us in this Fox Business exclusive on cybersecurity. We do appreciate it here at West Point.
Thank you, Joe.
All right.